Dorchester County Coroner Paul Brouthers is running for his third term. He tells me what he'll do if re-elected for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Dorchester County Coroner Paul Brouthers, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your invitation, and I'm really pleased to be with you today.
Oh, I appreciate you greatly. Needless to say, you are a household name here in the Low Country. For many decades, you were a state trooper serving the Dorchester County area. And of course, for the past, I believe, 3 terms, you have been serving as Dorchester County Coroner. And of course, you're seeking re-election coming up in June. So tell me, why re-election? Why again, Coroner?
Because we have, since I've been coroner, we've managed to do a lot of good things for the office, and the community benefits from that. But the things that we are focusing on, and since I've been the coroner for the last 7 years, is to elevate the standards in which the coroner's office operates. We do that through effective and efficient operations. We try to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. We focus very hard on training and finding new training opportunities for the deputies themselves to go to. But more than that, we want to make this the best coroner's office in South Carolina. And I like to think that we are way ahead of other counties in that regard. Some of the things that we've managed to do is we've received a grant for accreditation, and there are only 12 counties in South Carolina that have achieved accreditation through the International Association of Coroners and Medical Examiners, and we have certainly hoped to be the 13th. But we not only did we receive that grant, but they are very encouraging for us to achieve it, and they threw a lot of support our way. They give us a lot of training regarding keeping up with the accreditation process and the standards and the reporting process. But more than that, we're in the process of having a new facility built for the coroner here in Dorchester County. That's something that has never been done. The coroner's office has always been a tenant in some other place. For years, the coroner's office operated out of the sheriff's office facility, but now we're a standalone building. Right now, we're in a temporary facility, but where the temporary facility is, the new building will be built. Wow. So we're very excited about that. And some of the things, we'll have an examination room for post-mortem examinations and things like that. And it's even actually beneficial to our neighbors in Berkeley, Orangeburg, and Colleton, because we'll be able to do post-mortem examinations for them as well. And that will even create a revenue stream for Dorchester County. So we're very excited about that. But the one thing that I wanted to impress upon why I want to remain as your coroner is because I really care about the people of Dorchester County. And it's important for me to do the best job possible for them. I know that sounds a little corny, but I really believe that. And that since I've been here, we've elevated the standards to such a level that I'd hate to see us lose the progress through another coroner. So we want to continue what we've built, build on it even better. And I think that with the support of the public, I think we can achieve that.
So what were the standards before you became a coroner of Dorchester County?
It was really rudimentary at best. There really was no good established policies. Their evidence tracking system was non-existent. Everything was, paper files.
Yes.
Since then we've become all digital. We do not keep paper files anymore. In fact, our backup systems are on disk. So any case file that we do, it's cloud-based storage, but more than that, and managed. So, if a deputy's out on the scene of a homicide, for instance, he can get started loading that case into the filing system from anywhere on earth. So, because it's cloud-based. Yeah. And then we save that whole case file to a disk just in case something were to go bad with the cloud or the online format. So we have redundancies built in, but no more paper. No more paper. And we only use the copier here for very small things, and mainly for scanning these documents into the case file.
Right.
But that's just one of the things that we've done. And, of course, I sit as a member of the board of directors for the South Carolina Coroners Association. And that's important for us because that gives us a seat at the table when they promulgate all of these different policies, procedures, and rules that all the coroners follow, including the training. The Coroners Association is responsible for the training school that occurs in Columbia at the Criminal Justice Academy. And they have the Coroners Association Training Council, which falls under that. So having a seat at the table is very important. I'm very proud to be there. I'm very proud to be representing my county. And from here, the sky is the limit.
Now, well, how many case files have you been able to put into that system over the past 2 years?
Well, last year we had 1,132 investigations.
Whoa.
The year before that, we had slightly more. I think it was 1,147. So that's about an average for every year that goes by. Now, naturally, they tend to go up a little more. They did, especially during the COVID pandemic,
Sure.
but some of that has calmed down quite a bit. So we're glad to see that, of course. But the majority of our cases are natural causes, and those present very specific challenges, Quintin, because you don't always have medical documentation on that person. And even if you do, you have to read it, research it, speak with their physicians, their caregivers, their loved ones, all these people that knew them best. So, and those things will usually suffice in lieu of doing an autopsy. We don't think that you should autopsy every person that dies. Only the ones that really need it. If there's answers that we can't get through research or interviewing people, then we, of course, would do that.
So how many of those autopsies have not had been an autopsy over the past year or so?
We did, I think, 110 last year. I think somewhere in that neighborhood.
Wow.
So, yeah, and anybody that dies as a result of a homicide has to go to autopsy because they need medical documentation for the trial.
Yeah.
So, those have to go.
Yes, sir. And I wanted to get back to a couple of things that you mentioned earlier, but homicides, suicides, accidents, unknown causes. Which one was the biggest in Dorchester County in 2022?
I would have to say accidental death where there were overdoses. An overdose of drugs is usually classified as an accidental death unless there was evidence found at the scene to suggest it was a suicide. They're very few and far between. Most of them are accidental overdoses that the person taking the drug didn't know what all was in it, and it was too powerful for their system, too powerful for them, and it killed them.
Ooh. How many of that, and is that related to fentanyl?
Fentanyl played a big part in them, yes. Methamphetamine, Xanax, all of these street compounds that are copied, that are used by these individuals, and they don't know the strength, the potency of it. They really don't know what's even in it. There's marijuana out there now that's got drugs in it, that's got fentanyl dust in it that you don't know, and it can kill you.
Whoa. Now, when you separate that versus actual, suicides, how many suicides were there in Dorchester County versus those accidental deaths?
Much less. The accidental deaths involving drugs usually was somewhere around 60. The suicides are far fewer than that.
Wow. I know you're not in law enforcement any longer, Brouthers, but let me ask you this. Where do you see the uptick in drugs occurring in Dorchester County?
Mostly between the ages of 25 and 45. Those are the people who die from the drug overdoses the most. I know that's surprising, isn't it? But yes, and a lot of it is because they're on something that they don't know the potency of. And there's other compounds out there that are not classified as opioids but can kill you just the same. The xylazine is one of them. Oh. Xylazine is a tranquilizer used by veterinarians for the treatment of large animals, and it can kill you. There's something on the market now called kratom, that you can buy in these smoke shops and vape shops.
Oh,
Kratom is a naturally occurring herb, but not taken responsibly can also kill you. So, and it can kill you at one time. It's just an isolated incident. I don't encourage people to take things such as kratom and other things that you can buy legally, because you don't know the potency of it and you don't know how it's going to affect your system.
do you all find that potency later after the person died, or do you know it immediately once they die?
When they die, we usually do a blood toxicology and ocular fluid, and we send that off, and that will tell us how much of the drug is found in the bloodstream. So, and usually there's a guide that you go by that will tell you whether or not that's a therapeutic amount or a toxic amount or a lethal amount.
Wow. What has been the highest in your office that you've seen?
Oh, I really don't know. I've never really thought about it. I've never really looked to see the highest one. I can't break the numbers down for you that way, but it's a lot fewer or lower than you think that can be lethal, especially when you're talking about fentanyl.
Yeah.
So fentanyl is something that's ever changing in regards to the molecular compound, the makeup of it. They do that. They change it so that the law enforcement's calibration will be thrown off when they're trying to detect it. So, yeah. And then there's, so many different people out there that are manufacturing fentanyl. And so it's never going to be quite the same. So with the challenge for law enforcement is to try to keep up with those changes, the molecular changes that are being done so that the machines will detect it.
And okay, so what other trends are you seeing when it comes to fentanyls and all of these other potent, powerful drugs?
Yes, but mainly fentanyl. Fentanyl is the one that's ever changing and always having to be recalibrated, the machines, so that they can find it.
Jeez. How do you educate the public about this? I know that's a simplistic question, but it seems so, complicated with what you just mentioned. How do you educate them with this complicated information?
Well, it's really not feasible to think that you can explain all this to the common person, layperson that doesn't study it or deal with it on a daily basis. But what you can do is say that if it's not prescribed to you, you're better off to just not take it. And if it's prescribed to someone else, even more so, don't take other people's stuff. And and even now, I mean, things is what commonly thought of as harmless, like marijuana, can be most harmful to you these days because you don't know what's in it.
So, Coroner, let me ask you this, then. When you obviously do those autopsies with of these, unfortunately deceased folks, how many of those people do you and your staff detect that they actually took somebody else's drugs versus the manufactured drugs that were given to them?
A lot of times you may find something in their system that they were not prescribed. So I think that's what you're leading up to. They may have taken some, like, I don't know, their mother's fentanyl or, and it wasn't prescribed to them. So it's very dangerous. Human body is a very sensitive instrument.
Yes, sir. Speaking of which, how many of those deaths, unfortunately, were actually returned to, say, a medical professional?
I'm not quite sure what you mean.
Yeah, when it comes to some of those deaths, how many of those were returned, obviously, to a different person versus the coroner, a medical professional, or another expert?
Oh, a lot of doctors certify their own death certificates if they die in their care. If let's say, for instance, if we had a case that was reported to us, but the doctor wanted to certify the death certificate, and let's say that's a doctor in a different county, like Charleston County, like Trident Hospital or MUSC,
Sure.
they're well within their authority to do that. But if it's an accidental death, then we would prefer to sign the death certificate and investigate the case. So, because you don't know, and also if somebody dies in the hospital within 24 hours of a medical procedure being undertaken, then that has to be reported and investigated by the coroner.
Now, is that a separate case, or does that go along with, say, a regular death or unknown cause or a natural cause?
If somebody dies in the hospital and they were there for more than 24 hours and they died from natural causes, it is not a coroner's case. If they die from any kind of injury, any kind, or invasive procedure within 24 hours, then it's a coroner's case. If they die from a drug overdose, that's classified as accidental death. It's a coroner's case. But the basic thing is this: if you die from natural causes and you were there for more than 24 hours, then it's not a coroner's case.
Interesting. So, Coroner, let me ask you this: what were the number of the total death calls in 2023?
1,132 for my county,
Right.
And of those, approximately 80% of those were natural causes. 80%. Most of them, the majority of them, are hospice cases where people died at home with the care of a hospice nurse, but those things still have to be reported to the coroner because they have to release the body and track its whereabouts. If it's released to a funeral home, what funeral home? The coroner has to release all of that. Wow. That way we know what happened. But more importantly, we can ask the nurse, look here, did the person have any contagions like COVID or any of these other things, or sepsis or anything like that, or MRSA, any of those things. And then if that person had any injuries prior to the death, let's say that it's an elderly person, let's say that they fell out of the bed 3 weeks ago and fractured their hip. Now that might change the cause of death to accidental death because they develop a clot and it goes to the lung and they die. So that would change the manner of death, and then it would make it a true coroner's case. Wow. So that's why we ask those questions.
Yes, sir.
So it's very important.
Very, very much important. Yes, sir. I know realistically, some people say that we're out of COVID right now, but some people still are dealing with COVID. How many of those cases that you received were pandemic related?
Very few these days. Very few. Most of them have some other comorbidity, and like lung cancer and COVID, or congestive heart failure and COVID. Most of what we're seeing now, I can't tell you. It's been quite a while since we've seen one where the direct cause was COVID-19 pneumonia. They just aren't happening in the numbers that they happened before. 2021 and 20 were the spike years for that, but it's really COVID now is tending not to be so fatal. It's painful with the headaches and all the symptoms that go with it, but generally is not fatal right now.
Well, thank God for that.
Yes, sir.
What state-of-the-art imaging machine is your office currently using to enhance those comprehensive forensic investigations?
We don't have anything at this moment. We just received funding to buy a X-ray machine.
Okay.
But if we need to do anything invasive such as that, they go to autopsy.
Wow. Now, how much is that costing you all to do that out of the county?
The count, you mean the fee for an autopsy?
Yes, sir.
Right now it's like $1,500 plus $100 surcharge for X-rays if they do them. But that's, compared to a private autopsy, that's a significant savings.
Wow. And how much money, Coroner, would you actually use for preventative issues? Pardon me.
Preventative issues. I don't know what you mean by that.
Yes, sir. Such as, lung cancer, things like that.
Well, my job is to investigate the deaths and to determine the cause and the manner. We generally do that through medical records. Medical records, speaking with the physician that treated the individual, things of that nature. But if we just don't have a medical history on the person, but they died unexpectedly, then they would go to autopsy.
Yes, sir. And how many of those autopsies have you received over the past year? I know I'm probably redundant.
I would say, because we didn't know on its surface what the cause was, probably, I would say 70, 75 of those 100 and some odd cases. So about 75% of the cases is because we didn't know, because they were unexpected and didn't have a sufficient medical history.
Mm. And when you look at these medical histories now with obviously the deceased folks, what is the biggest difference about medical history from your vantage point?
A lot of people will have detailed histories, and some people won't have anything. There are people out there that just simply don't like doctors, hospitals, don't like to follow up on exams and things like that. And the biggest one is people not being compliant with their doctor's instructions and taking their medicine the way they're supposed to.
Right.
That's a big part of this. Is just general non-compliance.
Wow. Oh, so much to tackle here. But let me ask you this. Moving on, I know the National Missing and Unidentified Person System is also a resource for anyone missing a family member, and is also used for forensic investigations if a deceased person obviously is unidentified. How many times has your coroner's office used that system, and what training would you actually offer to other agencies if you're reelected?
We check, it's NamUs is the one that we use for trying to identify unidentified remains. We use NamUs, and not only to find the identities of people, but also to put them in that system just in case there is somebody somewhere in this country that's missing a loved one. So it's very, very helpful tool to try to reunite decedents with their loved ones and find out who they are. We use that. We use the National Missing and Exploited Children's Network, all of these different networks, the FBI, database.
Yes.
All of those things are very important tools. But we in most coroners, I don't know of a single coroner that doesn't use NamUs. Everybody does.
Yeah. And so over the past year or so, Coroner, how many of those people have actually come up unidentified in your office?
I haven't had any in the last year.
Oh, good.
But we get a lot of unclaimed remains that people, for whatever reason or another, will not take responsibility for their family member. So it's incumbent on the county to arrange for final disposition at the county's expense. It's unfortunate, but that's the world we're in right now. And unfortunately, somebody has to deal with it, and that responsibility doesn't fall on the coroner.
Right. And how many of those people who have said, "Hey, I unfortunately don't want, I don't want to claim this person or those items"?
There are some we can't find people for, and then there are some that just simply didn't have any relatives, and then there are some that they did have relatives, but the relatives said, "Do what you want with them. I'm not doing anything." We do get that from time to time. And then, of course, now you've got the homeless population, and they generally don't leave a very good trail of breadcrumbs to find their family.